Here we go. Former New York Republican Congressman George Santos, who was removed from office by the House of Representatives earlier this year, pled guilty to wire fraud and identity theft. Santos could face 2 years in prison. Santos also promised to hand over nearly $400,000 that he stole from donors to his campaign. I hope he runs for office again. Soaring temperatures in Texas on Tuesday prompted the Lone Star State to set a new record for electrical use as everyone remained indoors, blasting their air conditioners, environmentalists that they are. Texas, of course, home to the world headquarters for ExxonMobil, which is primarily responsible for climate change. Robert F. Kennedy, batshit crazy. There's now talk that Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who was batshit crazy, is now prepared to drop out of the race for president sometime before Labor Day and endorse Donald Trump. Kennedy last week reached out to the Harris campaign, offering to endorse her in exchange for a cabinet-level position, but word is she refused to meet with him, so now he's going to endorse Donald Trump because when you're batshit crazy, what's the difference between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump? Shares in Donald Trump's media company, the one behind Truth Social, well, they hit an all-time low on Tuesday, sinking 4%, closing at $23 and some change per share. The company went public earlier this year. Back in March, it opened at close to $80 a share. Now it's selling at $23. As I'm telling all my MAGA morons who listen to this show, bet it all. Bet it all. Everything Donald Trump touches, you know, it turns to gold. Or shit, I can't remember. Kellyanne Conway, speaking of shit, Kellyanne Conway's ex-husband, George Conway, and their daughter, Claudia, are hanging out this week at the Democratic Convention in Chicago. Claudia, now 19, tried to emancipate herself from her mother as a child, at one time accusing Kellyanne Conway of physical abuse. The cops had to be called in. Kellyanne Conway is now advising the Trump campaign part-time. Donald Trump's former White House press secretary, Stephanie Grisham, spoke before the Democratic Convention Tuesday night, explaining why she could never vote for her former boss. Grisham said she became close to Trump and his family, and that she knows who he really is and what he really thinks of his supporters. Grisham said Trump makes fun of the people who show up at his rallies and privately refers to them as quote-unquote basement dwellers. Really? That's all he calls them? Really? The Hill reports this morning that Republicans are beginning to fear Donald Trump is blowing their chances of regaining the Senate. 7 seats are toss-ups in November, with all 7 belonging to Democrats, and Democrats need a full sweep. They need to win all 7 to keep control of the Senate. Up until this morning, that seemed like an impossibility. As my listeners all know, it comes down to Jon Tester in Montana. But later on in the show, I have some good news for that Democrat incumbent. It may be a clean sweep. Maybe. If not, divided government. And that's a disaster. Reuters is reporting this morning that Vice President Harris has set a new record by raising $500 million since she became the presumptive nominee exactly 1 month ago today. Harris, she raised $500 million so far. She raised $310 million in the final week of July, while Donald Trump, for all of July, raised $138 million. A spokesman for Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps said his country's imminent attack on Israel may be delayed indefinitely. Iran has vowed to avenge Israel's killing of one of Hamas's top leaders who was visiting Tehran at the time of his assassination. Israel also killed one of the top leaders of Iranian-backed Hezbollah, which Iran promised to avenge as well. Meanwhile, the New York Times reports this morning that Iran's economic crisis has intensified, and some feel an Israeli counterstrike on their power grid, oil refineries, nuclear facilities, could make life so unbearable it would lead to an overthrow of the government. Iran has also signaled it is less likely to attack Israel if there's a ceasefire in Gaza. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken left a meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Tuesday, announcing that Israel has agreed to the terms of that ceasefire treaty drawn up by President Biden. Blinken says Hamas will continue to negotiate that ceasefire treaty later this week in Cairo, but has yet to agree to the terms, which still remain secret. According to the Federal Reserve, 28% of Americans are now looking for a new job. That's the highest number in more than 10 years. This might have something to do with the fact that work sucks. Jennifer Lopez filed for divorce from Ben Affleck after a little more than 2 years of marriage. That means they can resume dating again. Daytime talk show host Phil Donahue passed away. Now, the Washington Post, in his obituary, writes that Phil Donahue's show on MSNBC was canceled due to low ratings. That is incorrect, and the Washington Post must issue a correction. MSNBC canceled Phil Donahue's show back in 2003 because Phil Donahue opposed the war in Iraq right before America launched its invasion. MSNBC and NBC were only putting pro-war hawks and generals who were actually lobbyists for the military-industrial complex on the news in the lead up to the illegal invasion of Iraq. There was no room in 2003 for Phil Donahue opposing the invasion of Iraq. Go back and look. Donahue's ratings were perfectly fine. On today's show, how Bernie Sanders saved Democrats from the Clinton and Obama wing of the Democratic Party. Look, did you see the convention last night? Michelle Obama, Hillary Monday, Barack Obama. These are superstars, and Bill's going to speak. These are, and I can't help it. I'm a Democrat, and I love them. I do. But this is not the same Democratic Party that nominated the Clintons or Barack Obama. Now, there's not just a generational shift going on. We are seeing a lurch to the left and away from the corporate donor class. Are you watching this convention? Do you see what's going on? The Joe Biden and Kamala Harris administration was far more progressive than any presidency since LBJ. And that is mostly because of Bernie Sanders, who I call a miracle of democracy. Bernie almost got the nomination 4 years ago, and after Biden won it, Bernie made it clear, if you want my support, Joe, you have to move this party to the left. And Joe Biden, who's a political animal, responded. Bernie and the squad and the people who voted for them, they made Biden and Harris move to the left. So this is not the same Democratic Party from 8 years ago. This is a party that finally realizes Donald Trump rose to power in America because the Democratic Party abandoned its New Deal roots. Bernie, along with AOC, the Congressional Black Caucus, the Squad, to name just a few, they were empowered by Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, who made it clear during the past 3.5 years, we need you. Kamala Harris is taking over a far different Democratic Party, a better Democratic Party, one that finally realizes we will lose this country to a con artist promoting phony populism unless the Democrats offer voters real populism. Harris is going to win in November because she knows elections are won by providing care, not opportunity, care. Care for the poor, the working class, children, and seniors. Now, I love Barack Obama. I love Michelle a little more, but I do. I'm a sucker for them and the Clintons. But as great as that Bruce Springsteen speech was, it was, and people are going to get pissed off, it was tired. Yes, it was smart, it was true, and it was wise. But he is still talking about giving people a shot at the American dream. People don't need a shot. They don't need opportunity. They need food, shelter, clothing, free health care, and free education. To placate the donor class, Obama is still talking about assisting anyone who's willing to work hard. Forget about working hard. Everybody works hard. The American people need help, not an opportunity, not a shot at the American dream. They need government assistance to survive. Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and Tim Walz get that. And that's why I believe Bernie Sanders single-handedly saved the Democratic Party. More on this later on. By the way, the fact that Kamala picked Tim Walz as her running mate, that is a 50,000-watt bulb signaling that she totally gets where the party is moving, and it tells us where she wants to take it. That was an amazing pick. This Tim Walz is amazing. And I'm going to be honest with you, I had no idea who Tim Walz was until he made the short list for vice president. I knew he had made the rounds of talk shows describing Republicans as weird, and that resonated with me and the American people. He's the reason Democrats keep calling Republicans weird. Well, they are weird. But I had no idea who he was. And then I realized, wait, he's this guy. This is who he is. Some of you already know this, but this is, most of you have seen this. I remember this tweet from October of last year, and I remember loving this guy, Tim Walz, and then completely forgetting who he was. But this is how I was first introduced to Tim Walz. It's a tweet, 1:57 p.m., October 25th, 2023. A tweet from Governor Tim Walz. It read, quote, "Texts from my wife, this damn dog," unquote. And I remember thinking, this damn dog? You can't say that. But, I know the feeling. From his wife. This is his tweet. Scout, that would be the name of the dog. Scout locked himself in our bedroom somehow. There is no key, etc. I am going to head home in a little bit, unquote. And then we see a new message from his wife. This is all on Twitter. They are going to have to try to go in through a window. They are getting ladders, okay? This damn dog. Then an hour later, a new tweet with an update. I remember this. The governor says, situation update, and it's a picture of two men holding ladders as one man is trying to break into the bedroom window of the governor's mansion to retrieve this damn dog, Scout. And finally, a few minutes later, a new tweet. It's a picture of Scout's face sticking out of the bedroom door, and the governor writes, quote, "Free at last." Look at that face, huh? Look at that face, huh? Scout reminds me of my Cody. Looks exactly like my Cody. Now, in a previous life, having raised several families, I went through about 4 dogs. They were Mahara, Anya, Little Guy, and Cody was my favorite. He looks like Scout. He looked like Scout. Cody was found on the streets. We had to put him on Prozac to calm him down. I'm not making that up. We put him on Prozac, but then he stopped humping my leg, and I became anxious. We did put him on Prozac. It didn't work. I wanted a normal dog. I couldn't walk Cody because he'd freak out whenever he went outside. He was basically, lived on the streets. We took him in and he became a shut-in. He would not go outside. And if I raised my voice, I being the alpha male in the home, if I raised my voice, Cody would pee all over the carpet. That's called a passive-aggressive bladder. So I couldn't raise my voice. We took him to a trainer. We tried everything, but Cody was from the streets, too traumatized, and he wouldn't change. I wanted a normal dog, but I was forced to accept Cody just the way he was. Cody wasn't going to play fetch, go on hikes, or chase frisbees on the beach. Then again, neither was I. Yes, he'd pee. He would soil the carpet if I so much as expressed the slightest sign of exasperation, which is really the only joy I get out of life. Exasperation is what makes me get out of bed each morning, but Cody soiled the rugs if I exasperated. All Cody was basically good for was lying on top of me whenever I took a nap. And that was good enough. Just having Cody lying on top of me every time I took a nap, give anything for that. Eventually, when Cody's muzzle looked just like Scout, when his muzzle turned from black to white, I could take him outside for a few minutes, maybe like 90 seconds, then he would freak out, and I had to bring him back in. This damn dog. That's how I was first introduced to Tim Waltz. This damn dog. It's been 10 years since I had a dog. I need a dog. This is the mop-up for August 21st, 2024. I'm David Feldman in New York City. Thank you so much for finding me this morning. Please like this episode so I remain in your feed. And if you want to help me, then share this episode with a friend. Copy and paste the link to this show and share it via social media, in an email, or in a text. And of course, leave a comment. I read all your comments. Let me know about your damn dog. It's the dead of summer. Tell me about your damn dog. Tell me about this damn dog. If you would like a transcript of today's episode, go to shopdavidfeldman.com. We now have transcripts going all the way back to May of this year, and they're all free thanks to listeners who purchase garbage over at shopdavidfeldman.com, like this Still a Democrat t-shirt or coffee mug, my Made in Los Estados Unidos coffee mug. That's my favorite. This is for your mother or somebody, I don't know. This is a picture of Albert Einstein, and he says, "I'm surrounded by idiots." This is me going down the middle of the road. You all know the map I built showing how Harris just needs to win Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. That gets her to 270. I made the map to shut my sister up so she'd stop freaking out. And I'm now selling a worst-case scenario map to remind you that Kamala Harris is going to be our next president. There's no way she can lose, and this coffee mug, this souvenir, will calm you down. And if you want to hurt my feelings, buy the Chef's Apron. Go ahead. Where am I? Oh, there I am. If you want to hurt my feelings, go buy the Chef's Apron with the words, "I hope you're in the mood for diarrhea." It's our biggest seller. This is what they buy, and it breaks my heart. So, huh? Oh, Leonard. It's my nephew Leonard. He's the chief operating officer for ShopDavidFeldman.com. He's my sister's son. You're going to be on later in the show, okay, Leonard? Later on.
Are we rolling?
No.
Are we live?
Yes, we're live, but it's not your turn yet, okay? You got to come back in about 15 minutes.
Hi, Uncle David.
Hi.
Show's great this morning.
Thank you, but it's not your turn. You got to come back in about 15 minutes.
This is incredibly boring, Uncle David.
Okay, that's not nice to say, okay, Leonard? Just come.
Hi, everybody.
No,
What?
no. You can't come back. You got to come back
What?
You got to come back later, okay, Leonard?
Well, I can't wait. Why do I always have to wait till the end of the show to come on?
Because you're trying to learn impulse control. Your mother, my sister, said, let Leonard run ShopDavidFeldman.com and teach him some impulse control, Leonard.
You suck. The show sucks. It's stupid.
Okay, we'll see you in about 15 minutes, okay, Leonard? Thank you.
You suck. The show sucks. It's stupid.
Okay, you already told me that, Leonard, okay? We'll see you in 15 minutes.
You suck. The show sucks. It's stupid.
Okay, Leonard, thank you. We'll see you in 15 minutes.
Don't make me wait. Why do I have to wait? Okay. You should wait.
Okay, everybody has to learn how to wait, Leonard, okay?
You're boring.
Okay. Thank you, Leonard. We'll see you in a little while.
This sucks. You suck.
Okay. Thank you, Leonard. That's my nephew, Leonard. He runs ShopDavidFeldman.com, and he'll be joining us in a little while. All right. Back to the convention. Let's talk about the convention, right? The affirmative action of generational wealth. Did you hear that last night? Former First Lady Michelle Obama talked about the difference between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. Michelle Obama said, unlike Donald Trump, Kamala Harris never enjoyed, quote, the affirmative action of generational wealth. Now, some of you might remember George W. Bush coming out against affirmative action when he was running for president back in 2000 by talking about, quote, the soft bigotry of low expectations. This is the mobilization of the English language, and every American racist who opposed affirmative action found solace in George W. Bush's phrase, the soft bigotry of low expectations. Well, it's time. Why is that happening? It's time for Michelle Obama to hand George W. Bush another breath mint, because her phrase, the affirmative action of generational wealth, just made everything coming out of George W. Bush's mouth stink to high heaven. So next time some idiot, racist Republican tells you DEI is un-American, tell them Michelle Obama says, so is the affirmative action of generational wealth. Wow. I was watching the convention last night. My sister called and said, there aren't enough bottles of ketchup in the world for Donald Trump to throw at his wall. As Michelle Obama said last night, something magical is in the air. We were warned, I warned, that if Joe Biden stepped aside, it would be the 1968 Chicago Convention all over again. I was wrong. I have never seen anything like this. Up until this week, party conventions, at least in modern American history, had become irrelevant. We knew who the nominees were going to be. There were no more open conventions. There hadn't been an open convention since Chicago in 1968. conventions turned into boring, repetitious infomercials for both parties. This convention, definitely worth watching, especially because the most important function a convention plays is firing up the base, energizing the thousands of delegates in that arena and getting them to then go out there and organize the party's ground game. The enthusiasm is palpable, not just for those in the arena. If you're watching this thing at home, you're becoming radicalized. You're going to kick open doors or glass ceilings for this party. Listen to me on this. Elections are won on the ground, not in the air. They're won on the ground. That requires fire in the belly. We're seeing genuine excitement for Kamala Harris, and that spells disaster for Donald Trump. Forget the polls. Forget the ad buys. Forget the money. This election comes down to 7 swing states. This presidential election comes down to 7 swing states, specifically 3, and you know which 3 they are, and you can only win Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania with a solid ground game, something Donald Trump doesn't have. Without enthusiasm, no amount of money, ad buys, or sophisticated polling can bridge the enthusiasm gap. Michelle Obama's speech was incredible because she laid out exactly how we win. And she told everyone, yes, it's good to be enthusiastic, but you also have to be realistic. Being realistic means, she said, doing something. She said, don't wait for the party to call you and ask you to volunteer. Call the Democratic Party and say, what can I do for you? Now is the time for all good men and women to come to the aid of their party. Ask not what your party can do for you. Look, I'm telling my audience, as you know, do something. And I'm being very specific. What you need to do, what my listeners must do, is get to work for Jon Tester in Montana. Because right now, if Tester doesn't get reelected, Harris will become the first president since George W. Bush to come into office without both houses of Congress. By the way, we have good news coming out of Montana this morning. Control of the Senate, as of today, comes down to Montana. If Jon Tester loses his seat, Republicans gain control of the Senate. It's just that simple. 7 Democratic seats up for grabs in November. If Democrats lose one of those, they lose the Senate. These are impossible odds. But right now, the only seat the Democrats are in danger of losing is Jon Tester's seat in Montana. He's been behind in the polls. Now, he wasn't always, but during the last month, he fell behind, according to what little polling that we've been able to see. Although, if you remember, 2 days ago, maybe 3, we saw a little poll showing Tester winning by 5 points. More good news for Jon Tester in Montana. Abortion is now on the ballot in Montana. Late last night, we got word that Montana's Secretary of State announced that pro-abortion rights activists have succeeded in delivering enough signatures to place an initiative on the November ballot guaranteeing the right to an abortion in the Montana state constitution. Activists in Montana delivered more than double the number of signatures they needed to qualify. This, we believe, will help Jon Tester by bringing out the Democratic vote. Well, this week's convention is, as the kids used to say back in 2012, off the chain. That's as hip as I get. 2012, off the chain. Michelle Obama says there's a contagion of hope. That's what she said last night, a contagion of hope. That pesky little word, hope. Bill Clinton, back in 1992, told us he came from a little town called Hope. And then Obama wrote The Audacity of Hope. Well, Michelle, her husband, and the Clintons, they are all about hope. And there's a lot to be said about hope. But this is a different Democratic Party. This is a much more progressive Democratic Party. Far different from the ones that nominated the Clintons and the Obamas. This is now the party of AOC, Bernie Sanders, the Squad, Joe Biden, Tim Walz, and Kamala Harris. This party is demanding more than just hope. Okay, you all know I'm a Democrat, proudly so. And if you watched Tuesday's convention, you'd understand why. I am not as smart as the Obamas, the Clintons, Tim Walz, or Kamala Harris. I think I might be as smart, or at least as charismatic, as Doug Emhoff. I'm kidding. Did you see Doug Emhoff? Blew me away. I had no idea what he was capable of. He laid low for 4 years, and I have to admit, I wasn't a fan, because to me, he was just another corporate lawyer from Los Angeles, and I don't trust corporate lawyers, especially from Los Angeles. But he completely got me last night. Blew me away. In many ways, Doug Emhoff defines the Democratic Party. He is a man secure enough to take a back seat to his wife. Could you imagine anyone in the Republican Party not seeing Doug Emhoff as anything other than a beta male? Because Republicans have no idea what masculinity actually means. Look, I'm not as cool as these people. Maybe Doug Emhoff. No, turned out he's pretty cool. I don't make the world better. I'm basically a creep. So I find these people aspirational. I aspire to be like everyone I saw at the convention last night. They're cool. I never sat at the cool kids table. Actually, neither did anybody who spoke last night or anybody in the arena, because they know it's not the table that makes you cool. It's who you are that makes you cool. It's what you overcame. It's what you struggled with that makes you cool. Greatest roll call ever. The idea of putting DJ Cassidy in charge of providing the soundtrack to the roll call was inspired, and that was Obama's idea. When New Jersey cast its vote, DJ Cassidy blasted Springsteen's Born in the USA. Puerto Rico cast its votes to Despacito. When Florida cast its votes, he taunted Ron DeSantis by blasting Won't Back Down, which was Ron DeSantis's failed campaign theme song. Oh, and by the way, the Isaac Hayes estate just threatened to sue Donald Trump for $3 million unless he stops playing their father's Hold On, I'm Coming at Trump rallies. Celine Dion has ordered the Trump campaign to stop playing her theme song from the movie Titanic at his rallies, although if the Trump campaign ever needed a theme song right now, it would be the one from Titanic. Guns N' Roses, Bruce Springsteen, and Adele have all ordered Trump to stop playing their music, and the estate for Prince also ordered Trump to cease and desist. Meanwhile, the Trump campaign is so terrified of losing Taylor Swift. They're so terrified that she might endorse Kamala Harris, maybe even show up at the Democratic convention this week. I'll tell you about that in a second. The Trump campaign is now resorting to cheap AI tricks, spreading phony rumors and phony news items that Taylor Swift has endorsed Donald Trump. She hasn't, and she won't. The question is, will she endorse Kamala Harris? Well, this is kind of important. Swift's a businesswoman. If she endorses Harris, does she run the risk of losing a large chunk of her fan base? But does she run the risk of losing a chunk of her fan base by not endorsing Kamala Harris? What I've been told is that when it comes to Taylor Swift's business, at this point in her career, it makes more sense. There is more to be gained by supporting Harris than by playing coy, especially since Harris is going to win this thing. So, not sure about this, but I have it on bad authority that Taylor Swift may perform at the convention Thursday night before Harris accepts the nomination. That is what I'm hearing on really bad authority, that Taylor Swift can't perform after Kamala speaks because that would overshadow what the evening is about. But you've heard it here first. It's either Taylor Swift Thursday night or actor Tony Goldwyn being annoying. Do we need to see Tony Goldwyn at the convention? Do we need to see these wonderful liberal actors? By the way, as you know, I love Tim Walz, but enough already with the hand over the heart. I hope to God Tim Walz doesn't have a heart attack this week. The way he clutches his heart. Look, Tim's clutching his chest. He's having a heart attack. No, it's okay. He's happy to be here. That's what he does. No, he's really clutching his chest. I know, it's okay. He's really happy to be here. No, he's on the ground clutching his chest. I love the guy. But the touching the heart, do what Robin Williams did. Grab your balls. Remember when Robin used to grab, instead of your heart, grab your heart on. It's enough with the heart already. All right, back to the roll call. This was incredible. When Georgia was called upon during last night's roll call, rapper Lil Jon broke loose with a surprise performance, leading the entire convention, singing "We're Not Going Back." As my sister said, there isn't enough ketchup on the planet for Trump to throw at his wall. Who did Trump have at his Lee Greenwood. I'm proud to be an American. Yeah, because that's the only thing Lee Greenwood has going for him. The only thing Lee Greenwood can be proud about is he was born an American. Typical of the Republican Party, being proud of how they were born. Pathetic losers. Pathetic. Compare the RNC to last night and tonight. The RNC just filled with pathetic white losers. Tuesday's convention began with remarks from Jason Carter, who said his grandfather, President Jimmy Carter, who at the age of 99 is in hospice, President Jimmy Carter has officially promised to stay alive just long enough to cast his ballot for Vice President Kamala Harris. Maybe not a good idea to talk about dead people voting when you're in Chicago, but it was touching. It was. For the first time in the Democratic Party's history, Democrats hosted a panel discussion to address Palestinian casualties in their war against Israel. 30 delegates are in attendance, representing the uncommitted Michigan voters who refused to cast a ballot for Joe Biden as a form of protest, as a way of saying we don't support Joe Biden's unconditional support for Israel. President Biden, in his speech, acknowledged the pro-Palestinian protests outside the hall and said they had a point. But when the pro-Palestinians demanded a speaking spot at the convention, they were denied. At least so far, pro-Palestinian delegates have been denied a speaking spot because that would cut into all the important stuff the actor Tony Goldwyn has to say. We'd love to hear the Palestinians talk. It's a very important issue, but Tony Goldwyn, the former chairman of American Express, was given a speaking spot Tuesday night. But so far, no room at the inn for the pro-Palestinian delegates. Not even Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib? Seriously? While the vice president was winning the nomination Tuesday night in Chicago, she held a packed rally in Wisconsin inside the Pfizer Center where Donald Trump spoke a month ago. Needless to say, but I'll say it anyway, last night's Harris rally was packed. Trump's last month was not. President Obama, everything he does is great. He made me laugh so hard last night. It was so subtle. He made a very subtle crack at Donald Trump. You should go back and watch this. Obama, in his speech, asked, "What is it about Trump and his obsession with crowd sizes?" And then Obama very quickly looked down at his hands. It was like a nanosecond, then he went back into his speech. It was really funny. Go back and watch that. It was just a veiled way of saying Trump is insecure about his masculinity with a look, just Obama looking down at his hands. I laughed so hard. Did anybody else catch that? Let me know in the comments section. Well, Bernie Sanders, it was so funny when he did that. It was elegant. Just the timing was perfect. Bernie Sanders spoke Tuesday night before a generally, I'm going to say, unenthusiastic crowd. Now, eventually he won them over, but unlike 2016 and 2020, Bernie doesn't carry the same weight inside the Democratic Party he once did. There is definitely a generational shift going on here, but the party, because of Bernie, is way more progressive this week. One could argue that Bernie Sanders single-handedly dragged the Democratic Party and Joe Biden and Kamala Harris kicking and screaming to the left. But last night you got a sense, because he's now in his 80s, there was not the gratitude he so richly deserves. If you saw AOC's speech on Monday, well, she is a superstar. She is definitely carrying Bernie's torch. For the past 4 years, they have been inseparable. The two of them fought for Joe Biden until the bitter end because Joe had become so beholden to them and the progressive wing of the Democratic Party. Bernie last night offered both a full-throated endorsement of Kamala Harris, while at the same time was quite specific on what he expects to see in a Harris administration. Unlike President Obama's speech last night, Bernie was strong on details. Bernie made veiled demands, letting Harris and the Democrats know that she has his unwavering support, but he also has expectations. It was a classy speech. You might remember Bernie was holding out on an official endorsement. Now, he said, "I promise to vote and campaign for Kamala." but he was withholding what he called an official endorsement until he was guaranteed concessions to the progressive wing of the Democratic Party. I suspect Kamala Harris, unlike Joe Biden, doesn't think she needs Bernie Sanders. She probably doesn't. But she's going to need AOC. Bernie, in his speech, said Joe Biden accomplished more than any president since FDR. High praise from a Democratic socialist like Bernie, who made it a point of saying that everything he's demanding isn't radical, saying this is no different from what FDR gave us. It's not radical. Bernie, in his speech last night, called for an end to, quote, the horrific war in Gaza. This is when he began winning over the crowd. He said that the Israeli hostages must be returned, and he demanded an immediate ceasefire. In his speech, Bernie opened by singing the praises of government, celebrating the Biden-Harris administration's competence in defeating COVID and keeping American citizens afloat by providing them with an eviction moratorium, the largest expansion of Medicaid in American history, and cutting childhood poverty by nearly 40%. What Bernie left out is that by 2022, those three major accomplishments lapsed as Republicans and or the Supreme Court refused to renew them. Bernie said, when the political will is there, government can provide for the American people. When the political will is there, government can provide for the American people. So this is probably one of Bernie's last major addresses. So I want to talk about it. Without saying as much, Bernie last night reminded Democrats that he, as a Democratic socialist, believes in big and competent government. He never identified himself as a Democratic socialist. I'm going to piss off a lot of my listeners by saying this. Maybe it's time to throw away the word socialism. It's maybe, just offering this up, it may not be a winning message. Now, I believe in socialism. I believe in big, competent government. I believe in partial state ownership of any industries we bail out. When we bailed out General Motors, we should have kept the largest voting share of stock. That doesn't mean we run the auto company. It means we have the largest voting share of stock. I believe in government regulation and turning necessary businesses that provide essential services, turning them into utilities. I believe in public banking, public health care, public education, public housing, and public ownership of patents for drugs that our tax dollars paid to create. I believe that when Big Pharma won't bring down the cost of an essential drug, the government should step in and manufacture it. But I do not believe in complete public ownership of the marketplace. I believe government must fill in the gaps left behind by capitalism, or whatever you call this kleptocracy we're currently living under. I don't think socialism is a winning word. I think big government, competent government, is politically soothing. Ralph Nader said the other day, our country has tons of examples of socialism. Schools, public schools, highways, bridges, dams, clean drinking water. That's socialism. Medicare, the VA, and of course the post office are all perfect examples of socialism. Socialism, I might add, that private corporations benefit from. I don't see it as an either or. I think you can have big, competent government and big business. So I don't think socialism, I guess you could call me a democratic socialist. I think a lot of my listeners are pissed off at me now for saying this. I don't think for the Democratic Party, the word socialism is a radioactive word in this country. You have to deal with the fact that this is an incredibly stupid country. I don't think the left should maybe shy away from the word socialism. I think calling for government solutions, big government, and competent government is smarter. Most importantly, don't allow anyone to demonize government, especially when it's corporate America, not government, that's destroying our lives. Bernie called for raising the minimum wage last night. He called for passage of the PRO Act, which would strengthen unions. He called for raising teacher salaries, making affordable education available to everyone, and cutting prescription drug costs in half, all part of the Democratic Party's platform. Bernie thanked the Biden-Harris administration for capping the price of insulin at $35 a month for seniors. He then promised that a Harris administration will cap the cost of insulin for all Americans. That is a promise Biden made for his second term, and we have no doubt Harris will keep it, or at least try to keep it. But if Jon Tester loses in Montana, divided government. There's not much you can get done if the president doesn't control the House of Representatives and the Senate. Obama, George W. Bush, Donald Trump all came into office with the trifecta. Kamala Harris deserves a trifecta. She deserves the House and the Senate. I'm telling my listeners, call Jon Tester's office in Montana right now and ask what you can do for Jon Tester. Because she's going to win. But it's going to be tough if Jon Tester doesn't win in Montana, because if Jon Tester loses in Montana, Republicans get the Senate. John Giles, the Republican mayor of Mesa, Arizona, who announced he's voting for Harris, this is a Republican, he addressed the DNC Tuesday night. In his speech, the Republican mayor said thanks to Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, his conservative Republican community is thriving. He called Trump a child who has hijacked his Republican Party. Mesa is the third largest city in Arizona. It's got a population of 513,000 voters. Arizona. Biden won it, and it's looking more and more like Trump is going to lose it. We're getting a list of Republicans voting for Harris who will be speaking this week. As I said earlier, Trump's former press secretary, Stephanie Grisham, spoke. Other Republicans expected to speak include former Republican Congressman from Illinois, Adam Kinzinger. Kinzinger was swept into office as part of the Tea Party movement back in 2010. He's a war veteran. He became politically radioactive inside the Republican Party after he and Liz Cheney agreed to sit on the January 6th committee. In 2022, after countless death threats, Kinzinger announced he wouldn't run for re-election. Liz Cheney lost her seat that same year after failing to secure the nomination in a primary election. Jeff Duncan, the former Republican lieutenant governor of Georgia back in 2020, he was the lieutenant governor back when Donald Trump was trying to steal that election in Georgia. Jeff Duncan announced he will be voting for Biden and is expected to speak at the convention, probably tonight. I'm going to wrap it up here. Oh, good. I'm keeping it short tonight. Bush's brain, Karl Rove, or Turd Blossom, as George W. used to call Karl Rove. Karl Rove is the Texas political consultant who got George W. Bush elected and then reelected 20 years ago. Rove said that Kamala Harris is succeeding in making the Democrats fall in love and in line. Rove said usually it's the Democrats who fall in love while it's the Republicans who fall in line. But Rove said Kamala Harris has succeeded in accomplishing both. He added, "I have not seen anything like this since 2008, when Barack Obama first ran for president." I liked Obama's speech. There were two, by the way, it was 20 years ago when he first came on the national scene. It was the 2004 convention in Boston when John Kerry got the nomination. Nobody knew who Obama was. He was a Illinois state senator running for U.S. Senate, and his speech was of the time. It was a great speech of the time. There is no such thing as blue states or red states. There's only the United States of America. It was a call for unity. He really needs to focus on rich and poor. I love him. He needs to talk more about rich and poor. He is probably, just in terms of everything, he is the greatest. But I think he doesn't have as much compassion for the downtrodden as he should. His speech was great, but it was 14 years old. He pinched some ideas from that speech he gave in 2008 when he threw the Reverend Jeremiah Wright under the bus. Jeremiah Wright is a great man, and his soundbite was taken out of context, and to save his campaign, Obama threw Jeremiah Wright under the bus. And there were echoes of that speech last night where Obama is talking about how we should be more tolerant of older people who make mistakes and say the wrong things, and we should try to understand that the world is moving too quickly for them. And in the Jeremiah Wright speech, he talked about his grandmother who was white, and she would walk on the other side of the street when she saw a black person. And it's politically savvy, but it's been, 16 years since then? I don't necessarily think we have to coddle people who believe the world is happening too quickly for them. He thinks that's how you win elections. He's probably right. I wish he talked more about the haves and the have-nots. Nobody better. Nobody better. Anyway, Karl Rove warned that Kamala Harris's Achilles heel could be inflation, and that polls show that Democrats have spent a year and a half failing to convince Americans that when it comes to the economy, things are better than they actually are. I'll talk about this later in the week. She's going to win. Finally, a new A-plus poll. This is from CBS YouGov. It shows Kamala Harris beating Trump by 3 percentage points nationwide. That, according to this poll, is outside the margin of error. In the battleground states, there are roughly 7. She's even with Trump, but she isn't. She's winning in the battleground states, especially in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. The other 4 battleground states, the only question is how big a landslide we're looking at. That's all we're looking at. There is some polling coming in. This is the second poll I've seen this week showing the race in Pennsylvania is tightening a little. Pennsylvania, 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 Pennsylvania. As of this morning, the race for president still comes down to Pennsylvania. Control of the Senate comes down to Montana. This is what we're going to be talking about after the convention. Pennsylvania and Montana. When I say we, that will be the national conversation. Pennsylvania and Montana. I'm David Feldman, reminding you to stay strong and protect the weak. If you would like a transcript of today's episode, go to shopdavidfeldman.com. They are free, thanks to my listeners who buy garbage, like the Still a Democrat coffee mug or T-shirt, the Made in Los Estados Unidos coffee mug, the Albert Einstein coffee mug where he says, I'm surrounded by idiots. What else? We've done that one already. And, of course, my map. I made this for my sister. I'm selling it. It's the worst-case scenario map. It's a coffee mug that reminds you that Kamala Harris can lose all the states except Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. She gets to 270. I think that's a good souvenir. And if you want to break my heart, you can buy this, the chef's apron with the words emblazoned, I hope you're in the mood for diarrhea. Well, he waited patiently. It's time for my sister's son, Leonard, to join us. Please welcome, as promised, the Chief Operating Officer of ShopDavidFeldman.com, my nephew, Leonard. Hi, Leonard.
Are we rolling? Are we live? Hi, Uncle David. Show's great this morning. You know how I like to consume your show, and your listeners might want to give this a try. I turn the sound completely down and listen to Theo Von's podcast. That's what I do. I'm glad Uncle David is feeling better. I'm more of a herd immunity kind of guy, while Uncle David just goes along with the herd. And by that I mean whatever the herd is thinking is just fine with Uncle David, which is why he refuses to even entertain the idea of voting for Bobby Kennedy Jr. as an alternative to voting for Kamala Harris, who, as we all know, is in the pocket of Big Pharma. But I'm not allowed to talk about that. I like Bobby Kennedy Jr. He's smart. His father was president of the United States. I like smart people. But I'm not allowed to talk about Bobby Kennedy Jr. So much for the First Amendment here at shopdavidfeldman.com. I hate this job. It's stupid. My mom says I can't quit, that I need to stick it out. She's stupid. Since I'm not allowed to say what's on my mind, all I'm going to tell you this morning is go to shopdavidfeldman.com and buy some of Uncle David's stupid shirts and stupid coffee mugs. Buy a lot. Don't be cheap. Be the opposite of cheap, like not cheap. Personally, I think it's all crap. I'm just being honest. I hate working for my Uncle David. He says I ruin family dinners because I don't read what he tells me to read. Sorry, Uncle David, but I'm an independent thinker who refuses to be brainwashed. So, at family dinner, I keep my mouth shut, except when I'm chewing. And yes, I chew with my mouth wide open because the air we breathe is 70% nitrogen. And nitrogen not only aids in digestion, it also serves as a catalyst that activates most of the nutrients in your food. I try to explain that to my mom. I try to tell her that by chewing with her mouth closed, instead of chewing with her mouth wide open like me, she's actually making her food less nutritious. She's depriving her body of the nitrogen in our air that's essential for absorbing all the minerals and vitamins in our food. So I chew with my mouth wide open for a very long time, which my mother says is disgusting. But you know what's actually disgusting? All the colds that she gets that I don't get, because I chew with my mouth wide open, which means, unlike my mom, I'm nitrogen deprived. All right, I'm bored. This is Leonard Riefenstahl, Chief Operating Officer for ShopDavidFeldman.com, coming to you from the Nerve Center for ShopDavidFeldman.com, my old bedroom here in Rumson, New Jersey. I hate this job. I hate my mom, and I hate my Uncle David. They're all stupid. Don't be stupid. Be the opposite of stupid. Like not stupid. I'm going back to sleep. This was a complete waste of my time.
Thank you, Leonard. Great job, as always. That's my sister's son, Leonard. If you enjoyed any of this show, please hit the like button so I remain in your feed. Please share this with your friends. People say, how can I help? The best way is to share each episode. And subscribe to this channel, subscribe to my newsletter. Thank you to Bob in the chat room for keeping the conversation civil, and leave a comment. I read all your comments. I think that covers everything. This was a good show. Thank you all, and I will see you either tomorrow or the day after. Thank you. Bye, Leonard. I love you. Bye, Leonard. I love you, Leonard.